Inside Whitemarsh Hall, the largest mansion in America to ever be demolished. Only a few remnants of the glorious house remain today. At first glance, there's nothing particularly remarkable about Duveen Drive in Windmore, Pennsylvania. The suburban street looks like any other, with vinyl-clad houses built in the 1980s sporting plate glass windows. That all changes about halfway down the block, where a break in the houses reveals 6 monumental limestone columns. These towering columns, with beautifully carved Ionic capitals, once welcomed royalty, politicians, and socialites into a 147-room mansion, once called the American Versailles and now known as the largest house to ever meet the wrecking ball in the States. This is the history of Whitemarsh Hall. The Versailles of America, once home to Edward Stotesbury, one of the richest men of his era. The $3 million neo-Georgian mansion, with interior decor costing another $3 to $5 million, was the investment banker's rather pricey wedding gift to his second wife, Lucretia Roberts Cromwell. The Stotesburys enjoyed a lavish lifestyle until 1932, when the stock market crash began affecting even the richest of the rich. Stotesbury shuttered the mansion, let most of his staff go, and allowed the grounds to go to seed. His wife couldn't afford to maintain the property after Stotesbury died in 1938, and sold it to the Pennsylvania Salt Manufacturing Company, later Penn Salt, in 1943 for $167,000. The company used the mansion for laboratory space, and sold off most of the land to developers, who subdivided it and built single-family homes in the wake of World War II. Penn Salt moved to a new facility in 1963, leaving Whitemarsh vacant. The property changed hands several times in the years that followed, and deteriorated steadily. Vandals, arsonists, looters, and the elements all took their toll. The main structure stretched 283 feet wide, and the staff wing an additional 83 feet. The incredible terraced gardens, which apparently took around 70 gardeners to maintain, were designed by Jacques Grieber, who had worked with Trumbauer previously at Linwood Hall. Mammoth are the proportions of the main floor. There are arrangements on the other 5 floors to make the unsophisticated gape with wonder. The breakfast room, for instance, is to be lighted only by electricity. The influential art and antiques dealer Joseph Duveen, who would probably scoff at the houses lining the street bearing his name today, sourced antiques from England and France to outfit the mansion and complement Stotesbury's world-class art collection. When Whitemarsh Hall was completed in 1921, Eva and Edward hosted an opulent housewarming, playing the organ and throwing all the doors of the handsomely appointed rooms open. Groups of prominent men and women who have traveled extensively and were authorities on the subject asserted that in all their travels abroad they had never seen such splendor. I have never been able to find an expression in words for the majestic simplicity and beauty of the new house, wrote Eva in a letter to Horace Trumbauer. Which is so satisfying, so thrilling in its loveliness that it sometimes brings tears to my eyes when I see it in the moonlight. The Stotesbury fortune may have survived the panic of 1907, but not as much could be said for the Great Depression. By 1932, the estate, which reportedly cost $1 million per year to run, would be shuttered for the season. Just 6 years later, Edward would die at Whitemarsh Hall from an apparent heart attack. It would only take 2 months for the first reports of a sale to leak to the press. Mrs. Stotesbury, after a conference with legal advisors on the estate of the late financier, notified 66 of the 70 persons employed at Whitemarsh Hall that their services would no longer be required after July 15, reported the Philadelphia Inquirer in June 1938. While at the height of his wealth, he was worth nearly $100 million in 1912. Living large took its toll. Edward Stotesbury died with a $4 million estate in 1938. Eva Stotesbury moved out of Whitemarsh Hall and decamped to El Mirasol. She leased Whitemarsh Hall briefly to the Metropolitan Museum of Art for use as a stronghold during World War II to keep the museum's collection safe from threat. In 1943, the Pennsylvania Salt Manufacturing Company bought the house to turn into laboratories. They retained a gardener to maintain the grounds as they had been. Or, at least, as well as they could be maintained by a team 1/70th the size the gardens required. There are all sorts of guest chambers, each formerly with its own special stationery to fit the room's decoration, the laboratory that occupied the once palatial home. There were the chintz room, the portico room, the lacquer room, and the apricot, blue, Adam and Queen Anne rooms. Now they all have big double work tables with soapstone tops and disposal troughs for chemical wastes. The company vacated Whitemarsh Hall in the early 1960s, when it changed hands again, selling for a mere $700,000 in 1969 to a land developing syndicate that let Whitemarsh decay into a pillaged, looted, and vandalized ruin. The same room, right before demolition. The construction superintendent for the company which would build the new townhouses. About a decade later, Whitemarsh Hall changed hands again, this time to a developer with plans to transform the estate into a suburban development. An attempt will be made to salvage many relics and features of Whitemarsh Hall, such as some of the column's exterior walls, statuary, and fountains. The mansion was demolished in April 1980, and they were completed the following year. The name of the development? Stotesbury Estates. While the mansion may be gone, relics of the past still exist for those that know where to look. In short, if you're driving around Windmore, Pennsylvania, and you see something that looks particularly stately and neoclassical, chances are it was once a part of Whitemarsh Hall. Most of the remnants of Whitemarsh Hall, its grounds, really, are around Devine Drive, where retaining walls and steps still cut into the hillside, marking where opulently terraced gardens were once manicured by a staff of 70. A neoclassical belvedere stands at one corner, easily accessed by a cul-de-sac, and various sculptures, the landscape, now tucked into suburban shrubberies. None make the impact, though, of the columns that once stood at the portico of Whitemarsh Hall, which are now little more than a monumental garden folly. With a slight eeriness, they almost invite you to walk through and imagine what it may have been like a century ago, before the cookie-cutter houses and planned communities destroyed Jacques Grieber's landscape. When walking through, the columns led to one of Eva and Edward's grand parties, with organ music echoing around the fabulously opulent rooms of Whitemarsh Hall.
It truly is a magnificent evening, isn't it?
Absolutely. The architecture alone is breathtaking.